In the previous video of the podcast, I looked at a specific individual animal, which is the Burmese python. However, in this video, I will cover a more general topic of habitat, in particular, the desert habitat. Looking at a habitat as a whole allows us to understand how animals coexist together, rather than only thinking about them just as predator or prey. First of all, experts define deserts as an area of land that receives less than 25 centimeters or less than 10 inches of rain or precipitation per year. Some of the important examples of desert habitat are the Sahara, Polar, and Gobi deserts. To understand some of the key features of the desert habitat, I want to look at one major desert in China and Mongolia, which is the Gobi Desert. The Gobi Desert has many landforms like sandhills, dunes, dry riverbeds, and a saxwell forest. Despite what many people assume, the Gobi Desert is also surprisingly not sandy. It is mainly made of bare rock. Another surprising fact is that the Gobi Desert is quite fertile, having oases and rivers. While the information about the Gobi Desert may be limited to the US and elsewhere, since I'm a student of Asia, I would like to introduce it to audiences all around the globe. Every desert contains a complex ecosystem of animals. Some of the main animal species in the Gobi include the Bactrian camel, the marbled polecat, the onager, and the argali, and the snow leopard. Many of these species have evolved in different ways, leading to unique characteristics. For example, a unique thing about the Bactrian camel is that they have two humps. Unlike some other camels that have one, two humps allow the Bactrian camel to store extra fat, water, and nutrients. When food is scarce, the contents of the humps can be metabolized and used as a good source of nutrients. In addition to this, the Bactrian camel can also conserve water. As the American Museum of Natural History explains, they have a coat which insulates them from extreme temperature and allows them to conserve more water effectively. The snow leopard is another species in the Gobi Desert with a few characteristics which have allowed it to survive successfully. Just like the camel, the snow leopard also has a thick fur coat. However, their coat serves a different purpose. Unlike the Bactrian camel, the snow leopard's coat allows it to camouflage within its environment, therefore allowing it to hunt its prey and hide from its predator. The snow leopard is also incredibly agile. Since their habitat is the snowy mountains of the Gobi, they're able to jump huge gaps and stand on unstable surfaces, boosting their survivability. One critical aspect of any habitat is the relation between predators and prey. In the Gobi, these relationships are complex. First of all, niche partitioning allows animals in the Gobi to all coexist together, rarely competing for food. A good example of niche partitioning is the geographical variation between the Bactrian camel, which eats thorny desert vegetables, and the argali sheep, which eats grasses on mountains. This contrast in their geographical locations and eating habitats shows how many of the animals in the Gobi can all coexist together without actually competing for food. Another reason they can coexist is the vast difference in subhabitats in the desert. While they all live in the Gobi Desert, there are both plains and mountainous regions. For example, while the Bactrian camels and onagers live on the plains, the snow leopard and argali sheep lives on the rocky slopes and in the mountains. This spatial segregation reduces the competition among desert species for limited resources and allows them to coexist. In this episode, I've been talking about a specific habitat and how animals adapt to it. I'm looking at a broader habitat in order to show how animals evolve and coexist in relation to each other and their environment. While talking about habitat, it is also important to talk about the concept of biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to a whole of the habitat itself rather than a specific animal or organism. Studying the biodiversity of a habitat lets us understand the variety of organisms in an ecosystem and the ways they depend on each other. Because of global warming, biodiversity around the world is slowly starting to decrease. According to some biologists from the US National Park Service, around 35% of the world's plants and animal species will go extinct by 2050 if global warming is not reversed. We should be worried about this problem because when one animal in a ecosystem becomes extinct, it will negatively impact the entire habitat. When one of the species dies out, for example, its previous prey may overpopulate the area, or its previous predator may die from hunger, which will start a chain reaction, which repeats and disrupts the balance of the ecosystem as a whole. Therefore, as we fight climate change, we should also be particularly aware of the species that are at risk, as well as the importance of biodiversity in habitats around the world. Learning about this desert habitat is quite important. It teaches us many different things like how habitats work in general and how specific animals evolve within an ecosystem. For example, I talked about the Bactrian camels developing a thicker fur coat, which allowed them to survive in the harsh conditions by insulating them, or how the snow leopards' coats allows them to camouflage themselves. In every habitat, all successful animals evolve and gain characteristics which suit their own habitat, protect them from predators, and give them an advantage over their prey, which ultimately lets them survive. As we continue to look into other species, like the Tawaki penguin in the next episodes, we need to remember that species do not evolve by themselves, but are all part of a larger ecosystem. Thank you.